Hello everyone, Jolene here from Bookworm Adventure Girl. Welcome back. To those who are new, thanks for checking out my channel. If you are interested in diverse reading and Canadian literature, then please hit subscribe and stick around. Today I am very excited and a little bit nervous because I am going to try and predict the shortlist for Canada Reads 2021. So yesterday, as I'm sure all of you know, was violence and madness for our neighbors to the south. It was quite disturbing. So I am sending all of my love to my US friends. Before all of that chaos happened, us bookworms in the north were celebrating yesterday because the Canada Reads Longlist was announced. For those of you who may not know what Canada Reads is and you're wondering what the heck am I talking about, Canada Reads is basically a battle of the books. Each day one book is voted off Survivor style until one book remains as the book all Canadians should read. It's an interesting debate and it encourages readers to read Canadian literature, and it also supports Canadian writers. It's really a win-win situation. At the end of this video, I will give you some important dates and of course leave important links in the description below, as well as tell you what happens after the shortlist comes out. So the long list included 15 books, and I don't know how Canada Reads does this every year, but they always get me. I consider myself to be fairly well read and fairly knowledgeable when it comes to Canadian literature and know a little bit about Canadian writers, but every year the long list comes out and I've barely read any of the books, if any, and sometimes I don't even know most of the authors. This year, they continued that tradition. I have not read one book on the list. I own 2 of the novels, and 3 others are on my wish list. And there are several books and authors I've never heard of. So some people get disappointed when this happens, but for me, it's a cause for celebration. It means that I will be learning about new Canadian authors, new Canadian books, and maybe be forced outside of my comfort zone just a little bit. And I think that's a good thing. So I'm going to go through the books the way that I made my picks so you can see some of my process, and I will tell you about each book and tell you which 5 I'm predicting will make the shortlist. So my understanding, and I don't know this for a fact, but I believe that the Canada Reads people, and I'm doing this because this is where the Canada Reads people live in my mind, they give the 5 panelists 3 books to choose from. So I put the books into 5 categories that sort of made sense for it to be as diverse as possible, and I chose one book from each group. So group number 1 was Yiddish for Pirates by Gary Barwin. Now, Barwin lives in Hamilton, Ontario, so just down the road from me. And the story is set in the late 1400s. It's about, I think it's Moishe, I'm not sure. He's a bar mitzvah boy, and he leaves home and joins a ship's crew where he meets a parrot named Aaron, and they become best of friends. The story is told from present-day Florida by the parrot. The parrot shares all of the adventures and jokes and stories of the Spanish Inquisition. Now, Moishe joins a band of hidden Jews who try saving forbidden books, which is awesome. He falls in love with Sarah and they become separated. When all Jews are expelled from Spain, Moishe travels to the Caribbean with none other than Christopher Columbus, and Moishe becomes a pirate seeking the Fountain of Youth. Next in this group is All Together Now by Alan Doyle. So Alan wrote this book during the first lockdown, when we first went into COVID, while he was at home like the rest of us. He was missing the fun of the pubs in Newfoundland, and so he wrote these stories to, I think, bring some kind of humor to people during a dark time. And I think the idea is to feel like you're in the pub with everyone telling stories, like they would be doing in Newfoundland if there was no COVID. Next is Wendy, Master of Art by Walter Scott. This is a graphic novel set in Ontario, and it's about a contemporary artist who decides to get her Master of Fine Arts but her anxiety overwhelms her. Wendy, Master of Art, explores the politics of open relationships and polyamory, performative activism, life in the arts, the complexities of gender identity, sex work, drug use, and a lot more. All three of these books are supposed to be funny and bring a little humor to our world. So the book that I predicted from this group to be on the shortlist is Yiddish for Pirates by Gary Barwin. And my reason being is that it has Jewish representation, and I'm not sure that Canada Reads has ever had Jewish representation, at least not quite like this before, and I'm not sure that it will have the connections to Canada. Alan Doyle's book, I think, would be the best and the one that most fits the Canadian part from this group, but it already has a fan base and he has notoriety, and he doesn't necessarily need Canada Reads to help promote his book more. And Wendy, Master of Art, is a graphic novel, which is not a category or genre that appeals to the masses. So often the graphic novels don't do as well in the debates. So I think it's good that it's on the long list to give diversity and to let people know it's out there. But I don't know that it will go to the next level. We will see. In the next grouping, I have Butter Honey Pig Bread by Francesca Ekwuyasi. And if you've been following me for a bit, then you may already know that I have talked about this novel probably 3 or 4 times because it was longlisted for the Giller Prize. And I really want to read it. I still haven't gotten to it. And this will be the year, whether it makes the shortlist or not. Francesca Ekwuyasi is a Nigerian-Canadian author. And this is a family saga and a multi-generational story. It focuses on twin sisters who are separated after a traumatic event and are reunited 10 years after. The book has magical realism and it sounds intense. It has definitely intrigued me since I first heard about it. Next up is Tatouine by French-Canadian author Jean-Christophe Réhel, translated by Katherine Hastings and Peter McCambridge. Now, most likely I am not saying that title correctly, so please forgive me. My guess is that it is a fictional name for a planet, and this is another fiction novel, and it was so hard to find any information about it, so I'm just going to have to tell you what Canada Reads says, which is this. It's a long way from a basement apartment in a Montreal suburb to a new life on a fictional planet. But that's the destination our unnamed narrator has set his sights on, bringing readers with him on an offbeat and often hilarious journey. Along the way, he writes poems, he buys groceries at the dollar store, and earns minimum wage at a dead-end supermarket job. In between treatments for his cystic fibrosis and the constant drip, drip, drip of disappointment, he dreams of a new life on Tatooine, where he'll play Super Mario Brothers and make sand angels all day. But in the meantime, he'll have to make do with daydreams of a better life. Next up is Autopsy of a Boring Wife by French-Canadian author Marie-Renee Lavoie, translated by Arielle Aaronson. I've been hearing really good things about this novel. The protagonist, Diane, is 48 when her cheating husband divorces her because she's boring. Diane attempts to mend this loss and learn to trust again, while the reader tags along for the ride. There are themes of gender differences and the institution of marriage. My prediction for this group is Autopsy of a Boring Wife. So why not Butter Honey Pig Bread? Yes, it's true that I did really like it, but it's not set in Canada, and that has sometimes been a negative for books on Canada Reads. Secondly, the other 2 novels are French-Canadian writers, and I think it's important to have more French-Canadian authors translated. That way they will have more widespread accessibility across the country. So I'm very happy to see 2 of them represented here. And then I chose Autopsy of a Boring Wife over Tatooine because I think it's going to be more relatable to a wider audience. Okay, so group 3, we will start with Two Trees Make a Forest by Jessica J. Lee. I actually thought I had this book. It's been on my radar for some time but it turns out that I just ordered it not too long ago, so it is on its way. This is a memoir about Jessica, who finds letters from her grandfather, and they are a catalyst for her to go to Taiwan, which is her ancestral homeland. And as she explores the land and nature around her, she finds parallels to stories that have impacted her own life. Second is You Are Eating an Orange, You Are Naked by Sheung-King. This is another one that really appeals to me. It sounds like a beautiful story. It's about a translator who lives in Toronto but often travels to Asia and Europe. And he travels with his unnamed lover. And this story is about their time together and telling folk tales and stories to one another. And the last book in this group is Dirty Birds by Morgan Murray. And this is a fiction coming-of-age story that leads the main character from Saskatchewan to Montreal, where he expects to find fame, fortune, and love. And it sounds very entertaining. First, his name is Milton, Ontario, which is a town not too far from Toronto. So for the shortlist, my prediction from this group is Two Trees Makes a Forest by Jessica J. Lee. It's so hard because all three of these appeal to me for different reasons, and I grouped these together because they all had the theme of travel, whether traveling within Canada or abroad, and I liked that there was Asian representation. And of the two books in this group, and I think in the entire long list, Two Trees Makes a Forest is the only one with a theme or story of immigration. So I think that this novel offers something that the others don't. I believe we will learn in that one about Jessica's grandfather's life as an immigrant and what it's like for her to have learned about her roots that are not in the place that she lives. On to the fourth group. I put these books together because they all have something to do with fantasy, sci-fi, magic. So the first is The Lonely Hearts Hotel by Heather O'Neill, and this takes place in the early 1900s at an orphanage in Montreal. This story follows the lives of two of the orphans, Pierrot, who is a piano prodigy, and Rose, who is a dancer and comedian. The two of them fall in love and they make plans for their future. But during the Depression, they are separated and have to find each other again in order to, keep their dream and their love alive. Next up is The Midnight Bargain by C.L. Polk. In this story, the main character, Beatrice, secretly practices her magic, but she dreams of becoming a magus, like the men. Her family is quite poor, and they have hopes that she will marry someone who can help get them out of debt. But Beatrice will have to make a very, very tough decision. She can either destroy her family and the relationship with the love of her life, or she can marry for love and lose her dream of becoming a magus. Next is Hench by Natalie Zena Walshotz, and this is about Anna, who is a temp working at an oil conglomerate. Then something goes terribly wrong on one of her assignments and she gets laid off. When she starts looking at the data that she has, she realizes that it, and really therefore her, holds a lot of power. And so she then attempts to use her data and the technology to make a difference. And to me, this one sounds very clever. My prediction from this group is The Lonely Hearts Hotel by Heather O'Neill. My reasoning behind this choice is that from the sounds of it, it not only tells a magical story, but it uses Canadian history and Canadian settings to do it. The other books, although some of the themes might be relevant to Canada, it seems like they can actually happen anywhere. So that's my choice there. The last group, group number 5, are all Indigenous authors, and I think that Indigenous authors and their stories should always be included in Canada Reads. So first up is a memoir, Thunder Through My Veins by Gregory Scofield. Gregory was never told of his heritage, but he always knew that there was something different about him growing up. His father left after he was born, and he was separated from his mother 5 years later. He had a childhood of loss, poverty, violence, and self-hatred, and it wasn't until he started learning about his own roots and writing poetry that he really learned to accept himself. So this sounds like it's probably a heart-wrenching story for sure. Next is a novel that I think I am going to fall in love with. I have it in my shopping cart on Indigo already. Tilly and the Crazy Eight by Monique Gray Smith. So Tilly is helping to drive 8 elders on their ultimate bucket list road trip to Albuquerque for the Gathering of Nations powwow. This adventure transforms her and the elders on the trip, and they call themselves the Crazy Eights. So Tilly and the Crazy Eights, they each choose a stop along the way, somewhere they've always wanted to go or something they've wanted to experience. The trip proves to be powerful and healing, and friendships are forged and hearts are broken and mended. So I really want to read this one. Finally, the last book in this group and on the long list is Johnny Appleseed by Joshua Whitehead. This is an author I've had on my radar for quite some time. Johnny Appleseed is a young two-spirit indigiqueer off the reserve and trying to find ways to live and love in the big city. Johnny becomes a cyber sex worker who fetishizes himself in order to make a living. And Johnny has 1 week before he must return to the res and his former life in order to attend the funeral of his stepfather. So the next 7 days are like this dream. There's stories of love and trauma, sex, kinship, ambition, and the heartbreaking recollection of his beloved Kokum. As he goes through the motions of preparing to return home, he learns how to put together the pieces of his life. So again, all 3 of these appeal to me for different reasons. But my final prediction for the 2021 Canada Reads Shortlist is Johnny Appleseed by Joshua Whitehead. So if you were asking me why Jolene, why? As I'm sure some of you have been doing that throughout the video, it's because I see this novel as last year's We Have Always Been Here by Samra Habib. And not because I think it's necessarily going to win, I haven't made that prediction yet, but because it tells a story about Canada and the Indigenous peoples living in Canada that most people probably don't hear. People might not know what it means to be two-spirit or indigiqueer, and this is an opportunity for them to learn. Gregory Scofield's book sounds fantastic, but it's a little too close to From the Ashes by Jessie Thistle, which was shortlisted last year and in an excellent novel or memoir. Tilly and the Crazy Eights, it has a special place in my heart because it sounds like something that was envisioned for me when I was a kid, but it doesn't give as unique a perspective on Indigenous peoples living in Canada and on the LGBTQIA2S+ community within the Indigenous communities. I just want to reiterate that I haven't read any of these, so I am, making these predictions solely on what I think at this point would be a good mix of novels, and to tell the most diverse Canadian stories that are appealing to the most amount of people and the most amount of Canadians. These aren't necessarily the books that I would personally choose or the books that I want to read first, but the ones that I think our Canada Reads panelists will choose. So fingers crossed I might get at least a couple of them correct. I will say that I think all 15 books are worth a read. There have been several years that, my favorites weren't in the top 5. So I encourage you to take a look at all of the books on the long list and read them as you can. If you follow me on Goodreads, I have a bookshelf for Canada Reads Longlist, Canada Reads Shortlist, and Canada Reads Winners. The list is excellent, so feel free to check it out and put anything that you find interesting on your TBR. The shortlist will be announced on January 14th, so we will see if any of my predictions make the list. Once I know the shortlist, I will read all 5 novels, and as soon as I finish them, I will make a prediction of who I think will win Canada Reads 2021, and I will share that before the debates, which are from March 8th to the 11th. So last year I was fortunate to have joined up with a great team, Canada Reads American Style from the US, and Larissa and Sarah from Nova Scotia. The panelists joined us for questions, and we had discussions every day about the debates, and I am very excited to announce that we will be doing that again this year. I will leave links to their Instagram accounts and to the YouTube videos from last year, and we would love to have you follow along with us. I will also leave a link to the Canada Reads website and the long list in the description box below. Please let me know if you have read any of the long-listed books. What are your predictions for the 2021 shortlist? Do you agree with any of my choices? Please share your thoughts, and I look forward to chatting with you in the comments. Thanks again for watching. I hope you have a fantastic day, and don't forget to make every day an adventure.